Gallant Says podcast live at youtube.com/PaulGallant and twitch.tv/Gallant Says weeknights. We're still trying to figure out the proper time for it. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts. You want to talk to the show, you can contact it gallantsays@gmail.com or on Twitter @GallantSays, @GallantSays on Instagram, @GallantSays on TikTok. It is Tuesday, March 7th of 2023. We're recording this at 7:53 at night. The big news in the NFL from late this afternoon, as the NFL's franchise tag window came and went at 3 o'clock Central Time, the Baltimore Ravens sent notice to the NFL Players Association that they placed the $32.41 million non-exclusive franchise tag on quarterback Lamar Jackson, which means he is now allowed to negotiate with other teams. That said, the Ravens have the right to match any offer sheet that he signs or take 2 first-round picks in return for him. We have heard a lot of rumors about how Lamar Jackson wants a fully guaranteed contract a la Deshaun Watson, given that he won the NFL MVP back during the 2019 to 2020 season. He actually has a pelt on the wall he can point to that I think gives him a little bit more to work with than Deshaun Watson did. But remember that Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns contract, fully guaranteed, is entirely a result of the situation that Deshaun Watson created for himself. Anyway, I'm surprised that the Ravens did not give Jackson the exclusive franchise tag. The non-exclusive franchise tag means he could end up elsewhere. Does Baltimore really want that? Are they so against paying Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract? Are they so against the idea of just giving Lamar Jackson the exclusive franchise tag for this coming season and having him play for about $45 million? Do you really want to live in a world without Lamar Jackson? If you're the Ravens, if Kirk Cousins is worth giving the exclusive franchise tag to as a quarterback, isn't Lamar Jackson worth that as well? Maybe you have some questions about him as a passer. I do think those questions are generally overstated. Questions about his health, perhaps a little bit more fair. You knew what I was going to do with this as somebody who worked at the Houston Texans flagship radio station, Sports Radio 610, for a long period of time, and now is back in town working at ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Catch the show weekdays 10 to noon on that station. I have to bring it back to the Houston Texans, right? This conversation in some way, shape, or form. And I think we would all agree that the Houston Texans, who have no one on the defensive line, no one on the interior offensive line, a lot of slow linebackers outside of Christian Harris, not really the best secondary depth, not a lot of playmakers at wide receiver. They need a fucking lot. And we're not even sure about whether or not D'Amico Ryans is going to be a good head coach. They're not a quarterback away from Super Bowl contention. And I think the pragmatic approach for Houston, though being tempted by Lamar Jackson would be completely fair, they need all the draft picks they can get. Now, they do have extra first-round picks to play with from the Deshaun Watson trade to this year, to next year. When Lamar Jackson is an ex-MVP, you'd still have first-round picks to work with. How often do quarterbacks in their mid-20s become available for you to trade for? But all that said, even if I were the general manager, although if it was Madden, this is different. If it's Madden, I get to have Lamar Jackson. I mean, fuck everyone. I'm taking Lamar Jackson. I don't care how stupid it is. Give me a mobile quarterback in Madden. Give anyone a mobile quarterback in Madden. You're killing everybody. Lamar Jackson, arguably the most electric football video game player since Michael Vick, because of how fast he is. Though, as someone who played with him in Madden once before, they need to, I think, move the slider up a little bit for him when it comes to carrying the ball. Because whenever he gets hit, essentially he ends up fumbling. But anyway, to move it back, I would not pull the trigger if I were general manager of the Houston Texans living in the real world. I got to say, though, I would not be mad if Cal McNair pulls the trigger on a deal like this. Owner of the Houston Texans tells Nick Caserio, hey, motherfucker, look at you in your little vest. Oh, we're going to be pragmatic. We're going to be smart. The fans are bored. They're tired. They want a shot of cocaine, a shot of tequila. They want to get back in the game. You, Nick, now he's grabbing him by the vest. You got to get something for the now. Because Lamar Jackson would put the Texans into hyperdrive on a return to relevance. A lot of fans would sign up for it. I think if I had to pick one or the other, wait through the rebuild, or just have the Texans be relevant playoff contenders, I think I'd take the latter. It's been rough. And I've only been here for one of the last 3 years. I don't think that many of you would say no if all of a sudden you're on a football field, you see Lamar Jackson in full Texans gear. He's got a battle red helmet on because those look fucking sharp. And he's dropping back to pass or just running as fast as he can across the field. I don't think there's that many of you who would be able to say no. Sort of like being tempted by an attractive person. I think some of you out there would be like, well, maybe it's not the smartest thing to do, but I'll step out just this once. And the next thing you know, you're locked into Lamar Jackson long term. Don't act like you're above it. Don't act like you're above it here. Seriously. Don't try to sell me on that. Anyway, the Texans aren't going to trade for him. I would love to say they will. I'll be shocked if they will. Maybe I'll do some sort of, I don't know, on-air dare if the Texans do decide to pull the trigger and shoot over 2 of those first-round picks to Baltimore to get Jackson. But these are the teams that are probably a quarterback away from being a true title contender. The Miami Dolphins. But the Miami Dolphins, who are such a fucking dumb organization, Stephen Ross, one of the worst owners in sports, say they are not pursuing Jackson. Jackson's from the area. And on top of that, he's more exciting than Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins statement said that Tua Tagovailoa is the perfect quarterback for their system. Is he going to play again? Are you really telling us that? If you're a Dolphins fan, how do you feel hearing that the Dolphins just said, yeah, we're not going to go after Lamar Jackson. In fact, we're going to release a statement saying we're not going after Lamar Jackson. I don't see the point. I don't see the point in that. Also in the AFC East, the New England Patriots, if they're tired of Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, I think, would find a great many ways to use Jackson. Would Bill O'Brien work with Lamar Jackson, offensive coordinator of the Patriots? I don't know. Would Bob Kraft, who hasn't exactly been the biggest spender, be willing to spend big-time money on Lamar Jackson? I'm not sure about that either. The New York Jets, obvious. I think, honestly, they dodged a bullet with Derek Carr seemingly locked in on the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if that's 100% confirmed that he signed that deal with New Orleans, but the Jets are between Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. This is working out pretty well for them. They got to get somebody. That's a good team. I mean, they were a quarterback away. Zach Wilson was that bad last year. And Mike White, I mean, just by comparison, you thought that Mike White might be good if you were a diehard Jets fan. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not a quarterback away. But it would be funny if they offered 2 first-round picks to the Ravens and match and send some sort of ridiculous offer to the Ravens so that Baltimore has to match it, right? Like sort of those poison pill deals that you see from time to time in the NBA. The one that Daryl Morey, if you're a Rockets fan, you might remember did back in 2012 to get Omer Asik and Jeremy Lin away. The Las Vegas Raiders might have been a quarterback away from a title last year, but it was such a mess last season. Chandler Jones didn't live up to expectations. But, I mean, now, I think they're certainly interested in him, and it is noteworthy that the Raiders said, hey, we're not out on any quarterback possibility this season. I think they still would like to bring Aaron Rodgers to Vegas, too, to pair him back up with wide receiver Devontae Adams. They're not a quarterback away from a title right now. The Dallas Cowboys, does Lamar Jackson get you further than Dak Prescott? Honestly, I do not know the answer to that. I think because there's less of a sample size with Jackson in the playoffs, you maybe have a little bit more optimism. The Washington Commanders were somehow 8-1 last year. I'm not going to go that far, though, with the Commanders. The Minnesota Vikings problem is not Kirk Cousins. It's their defense. So they replaced Cousins with Lamar Jackson. Are they better? I honestly don't even think so. I think Cousins had a really good year last year, but obviously there's some limitations with him. And, if he's going up against a team that's got a good pass rush, that's not one of the quarterbacks you're feeling very good about. The Detroit Lions, how about that one? Jared Goff did play well, but I think we all agree Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback than Jared Goff. Does Jackson fit that offense more than Goff? And then the last one, and they're not going to do it because they just gave that deal to Geno Smith, but the Seattle Seahawks, they can do better than Geno Smith. You know it. I know it. They also have the draft picks. The defense, though, needs a lot, and I think that the Seahawks are probably looking at the extra draft picks that they have from Russell Wilson and thinking to themselves, you know what? We're going to roll with what we got. What teams could afford Lamar Jackson? I went to overthecap.com to take a look at what teams have the most cap space. The Chicago Bears are at the top with $94 million in cap space, but it seems like they're sticking with Justin Fields, and I don't think they're going to want to trade the number 1 overall pick. The Atlanta Falcons have $66 million in cap space, but they're not pursuing him, and that one I also don't understand. Two teams, the Dolphins and Falcons, saying, yeah, we're not going after Lamar Jackson. I saw David Mulugheta, agent for Deshaun Watson, tweet out collusion. I don't blame him for tweeting that out. I don't. Weird statement to put out through NFL reporters. We're not going to sign a former MVP. You're the fucking Falcons. You don't matter. This would be the coolest thing to happen to your franchise since Michael Vick, because obviously you blew a 28-3 Super Bowl lead. The Las Vegas Raiders have some money, $39 million. The Houston Texans have money, $40.1 million. Oh, man. Again, I'm tempted just because I want them to return to relevance. The New York Giants, $36 million in cap space, but I'm imagining that Over the Cap has not updated the cap space. They just signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million deal with $94 million virtually guaranteed at the signing, whatever the fuck that means. They also gave Saquon Barkley the franchise tag. So that figure has probably changed significantly. The New England Patriots are an intriguing possibility. They got $32 million in cap space. I really want the Patriots to make this happen. They won't. They won't, though. I can't see Robert Kraft greenlighting a big-time contract for Lamar Jackson or really for anybody. The Seattle Seahawks have $23 million in cap space, and then you have the Detroit Lions with 22. Seahawks and Lions are interesting to me. The Seahawks aren't going to do it either. The Patriots are interesting to me. The Jets have to figure out a way to create some cap space. Technically, they are over the cap at this point in time. You could say the same thing about the Raiders, who obviously are looking for somebody. They're not over the cap. They have cap space. Every team in the AFC East should be in on this one. I can't believe Miami's out. So there you go. In news that's not about cool quarterbacks, handsome quarterbacks we shift into, there was an interesting rumor about the one and only Italian Jimmy Garoppolo today. There is a push, per Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports, inside the Texans to sign 49ers veteran quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Their plan is to sign him in free agency while also drafting a quarterback in the first round. Garoppolo will start while the rookie develops. A weird story, right? And it comes on the heels of all sorts of media appearances by Bears general manager Ryan Poles. The Bears have the first overall pick in this year's draft after the Texans won the last game of the season against the Indianapolis Colts, to the chagrin of many a Texan fan out there. But Poles is blabbing to anyone who will listen about how much interest there is in trading up for that number 1 pick. He told something of the sort to Peter King. He, at the very least, had somebody who spoke with Rich Eisen, who called Poles a virtuoso running the show. He's a second-year GM. No one's a fucking virtuoso in their second year. He's, 37, 38, 39 years old? He's not much older than me. I'm sorry. You're on pardon my take, too, you're going on every single interview opportunity you can, and it feels like you're trying to highlight the fact that you have that number 1 overall pick, and I think it's because there hasn't been that much interest in it. Now you got Lamar Jackson available for 2 first-round picks, and Ryan Poles earlier today said, Ryan Poles through Peter King said, hey, if you want to get that number 1 overall pick, we're not just swapping picks this year. You're giving us 2 first-round picks. You're giving them a 24 and a 25 first-round pick. That's a fucking insane starting price, especially with the ability to, yes, after signing him to a big contract, get Lamar Jackson, a former MVP, for 2 first-round picks. Poles does not have the leverage he thinks he has, and I think he's operating a tad too cocksure. What a great word. I feel like he is of the belief that by leveraging interest through the media, somebody is going to come in with a Godfather offer for that first overall pick. And I think all the veteran general managers across the league can see through it and smell through it. I actually think the Texans reporting that they are interested in Jimmy Garoppolo, because why the fuck would Nick Caserio share any details with the public? When has he ever done that? He keeps things close to the vest. Why would he share any information publicly? Why? Why would he do it? There's got to be a reason for giving some sort of information like that. And I think it's because the Texans are trying to prove to everybody that they really don't care that much about what happens with that first pick. I think they're trying to give off the impression that there's a couple of quarterbacks in this year's draft class that they like. And if that's the case, that means that maybe the Colts think to themselves, well, our guy could fall to us at 4. Maybe we don't have to trade up into that number 1 overall spot to go get the quarterback we want. And there might be some other team that's way out of the running that thinks to themselves, you know what, it is worth it to swap first-round picks and send 2 more over to Chicago to have that first overall pick. But I think that this is smokescreen season. I don't know that this has any effect either on the Chicago Bears, but this story that came out about the Texans having a push inside the building to sign Jimmy Garoppolo could be something that's coming from Nick Caserio, who, of course, was working with the Patriots when Garoppolo was there. But I think it's far more likely that the Texans are trying to fight some of the smoke signals that other teams are putting out there. Before we hit the road, we did figure out the true details for the Geno Smith contract. I tweeted out yesterday, I want to see the actual guaranteed money for Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith, because was this past year a pleasant surprise? Yes, but he didn't play well enough to merit the 3-year commitment that we saw. 3 years, $105 million. And a bunch of people on Seahawks Twitter, because they're so smart on Seahawks Twitter, responded saying, you don't get how guaranteed money works. No, that's Jordan Schultz who put out the fucking report about how there is an ability for Geno Smith to earn $52 million in his first year. That's because there's a shit ton of incentive clauses in this contract. And from what I understand, the actual first year money of the deal for Geno Smith means $28 million in guarantees, with another 24 in performance incentives and a roster bonus at the end of the year. So this isn't a great deal for Geno Smith. It's a great deal for the Seattle Seahawks. It gives them the ability to get out from underneath Geno Smith's contract at the end of the year. And with that 5th overall pick, they are crazy if they don't use it on a quarterback. One is going to fall to them. It's a matter of who. I would be shocked if either Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud, because the Cardinals have that 4th pick, isn't available to them at 5. And maybe it's Bryce Young too. They're in a good spot. If one of those quarterbacks falls, you're not going to have an opportunity probably in that spot anytime soon, because you made that Russell Wilson trade. I think you got to pull the trigger and get one of those guys, sitting behind Geno Smith for a year, have him learn the ropes, welcome him into a system, a scheme, a team, an organization, franchise, blah, 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 that clearly is a smart one. But I'm shocked by all you smart Seahawks fans who have watched Russell Wilson play that don't have more skepticism about Geno Smith. What, you think he's going to play the way he did last year again? Fucking nuts. Why? He's 32. That's the best season he's ever had. He's going to do that again after the way he looked the last 5 weeks of the regular season? Yeah, he was running for his life all season long. I guess if the Seahawks offensive line gets better, great. But when's the Seahawks offensive line ever been good? Russell Wilson bitched and moaned about it for years. Maybe he did have a point, given that Geno Smith also got sacked 40 times this past year. You should be skeptical of Geno Smith. I said it on yesterday's show because you pat yourself on the back, again, all the time for being smart fans. So there are a bunch of tweets that I wanted to read in response to the tweet that I put out there. And I know I shouldn't live my life on Twitter. Yesterday, I sort of realized, man, I'm spending too much time on Twitter. And I mean even just 5 to 10 minutes. That's too much for me. But some of the responses I got, at McNeil Webster and at Hall Berry, basically tweeted the exact same thing, thinking they are very clever. How's that Texans future looking, said McNeil Webster. At Hall Berry 3 said, Texans future looking bright over there, eh? I mean, it's looking brighter, but do you think that bothers me? Guys, I grew up a fucking Patriots fan. I'm better than you as a sports fan. I have seen God. It is glorious. You will never touch what I experienced. You have nothing on me to try to talk about my place. I cover this team for a living. Yeah, sure. It's not exactly the best experience covering the Houston Texans every single Sunday. It's not. But guys, you got to come at me with something better, because I'm just going to come back at you and say, hey, you know what was great? Super Bowl 49. It gave me a massive pants tent. It was hilarious when the Seahawks blew it at the 1-yard line. And look, I've always had a good relationship with Mariners fans. I get along with Mariners fans. They don't take themselves too seriously. Seahawks fans, you take yourselves far too seriously. And sorry to pull rank here, but I grew up a Pats fan, and if you're trying to say, like, oh, but you cover the Texans now, I'm fine as a sports fan. It's great. It's been amazing. I don't even know how many playoff games I've been to that the Patriots won. They've obviously won 6 Super Bowls. The first round of the playoffs started in the conference championship game. Can you relate? No, you can't. Some other comments from sensitive Seahawks fans about me being just skeptical about Geno Smith. Eastwood Curtis tweeted, pleasant surprise. He broke franchise records as a passer in his first full year starting. He took a team that everyone thought was going to be the worst in football to the playoffs, was voted into the Pro Bowl, earned an MVP vote. Yes, I guess that was a bit pleasant. I mean, they went 9-8. They went on a Super Bowl run. This is a totally different story. If he goes fucking Flacco in the playoffs or something like that, yeah. Look, come on. This season was a pleasant surprise. Surprise. I said surprise. That happens from time to time. P looks like F if you really think about it. Kerry Williams, I do like the handle. Why exactly do you care so much about money? It's not yours. They felt it was a fair deal, so it shouldn't matter. He earned an investment for a couple of years. These are the same people who traded Russ. Trust them. The whole point of the tweet was asking the kind of guaranteed money that Geno Smith got. I wanted to know for sure that they were going to be able to get out from underneath it. And in case you are just tuning into the live stream, youtube.com/PaulGallant, twitch.tv/Gallant says the ability to earn $52 million in the first year actually means that the first year money is $28 million guaranteed with $24 million in performance incentives and a roster bonus at the end of the year. I don't know how much the roster bonus is, but he's going to have to make it to the Pro Bowl, the Super Bowl, everything to get all $52.5 million. The Jordan Schultz report was a load of bullshit. Football girl Anna, who's, I guess, like a hot chick who tweets about the Seahawks and gets a good following despite being uncreative, just said, we do not care. Samuel L. Jackson tweet. Then why'd you fucking respond? For engagement? Probably. At Kenny J. Darling, this is silly. Laughably silly. I think it's silly to think that Geno Smith is anything more than an above-average quarterback. At the Nell Dog, who's the most miserable fuck on Twitter, stick to watching the Texans. You don't know shit. No, I've seen the Patriots. Do you? Do you know what you're talking about? And at Geno O. Smith, do you understand how averages work? Above average money is a very good thing. Above average is a very good thing. What? No, that's not how it works. Above average is above average. Very good is very good. Above average is C+. Very good is B+. Great is A. A+ doesn't exist. I've heard that grading systems have been changed over the last couple of years in certain schools to make it so that everybody passes and nobody gets left behind, and maybe your reading level is down across the country because of it. But Above average is C+, very good is B+. I think Geno Smith is an above average quarterback. Did he have a very good season? Yeah. But do you think that he is better than above average? You're fucking nuts if you do. He didn't get elite quarterback money. He got above average money. That's true. But is he a very good quarterback? No. Some of you guys think he is. I don't know what's wrong with you. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. You ever want to get in touch with the show? GallantSays@gmail.com, @GallantSays on Twitter, the Gram, and on TikTok, also on twitch.tv or youtube.com/Paul Gallant. If you ever want to join the show live, Zach the Texan says, what the fuck? How could you change the grading system? Trash. My C's were not A's. Listen, I don't know how it works anymore. I've heard rumors that the slope has gotten very slippery when it comes to those grades. And I look at some of the grades that are given across in sports blogs for like drafts and free agency and things like that. And it does make me wonder, because generally no one's going to give an F out unless it's like truly awful. Anyway, I appreciate you guys joining. If you are a podcast subscriber, you can get this show wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. I am merely Paul Gallant. So long, farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful Tuesday night. We'll be back at it tomorrow night. Peace.